Early Monday morning, 3:45 in the morning, I went to sleep, had disjointed dreams I was under attack, and I woke up slightly covered in sweat. So I spent 2 hours on Blue Sky and Instagram. And now I'm looking at the moon, which is a full moon. The new sign here is working perfectly. The old sign the old owner had been not working for I don't know how long. Not much happens here in the small town of Hope at 3:45 in the morning. And I think this the actual highway traffic is a bit busy for this time of morning. I've seen 3 vehicles in 5 minutes. Usually it's like 1 vehicle every 20 minutes. For reasons known only to themselves, 4 different people have mentioned to me in the last week that the mayor is not scared or has personally told them they shouldn't be scared. I don't know what's going on, but I was in this town 18 months and no one ever mentioned anything about the mayor being scared or any reason to be scared. So all I can know for sure is a couple people said they're going to go after the HAs here in town. I don't know them from a hole in the ground. Other people heard them talking. I've seen some pretty serious guys in this town. They seem to be visitors. They look like they fit in any cell block and run it in any federal prison in Canada. I don't know what their story is. They just said a couple words and went on. One thing I have noticed is Khronos security guard company, the only security guard company in this town. I usually see them every day, every second day at least. Sometimes I see them 4 times in the day. Haven't seen them all week. I went to the Subway restaurant to get a sandwich. I mentioned to the guy, have you seen any Khronos security this week? And he looked at me and he said, no, actually I haven't. And he said, I usually see them every day or two. And I go, yeah, I haven't seen them either. So I don't know what's happening there. One of the fat white young guy once was at CIBC Bank on Wallace Street. There was a homeless guy in the hallway. It was like 2 in the morning. An RCMP officer, white man, showed up. He's the one who actually got the homeless guy moving, and after a little fuss, the guy did leave. And then the fat bearded young white guy turned towards me, made a hand trigger sign, and said the mayor and his clique want you gone out of town. The RCMP officer looks at him, looks at me, and says, Greg, on behalf of the RCMP, you're more than welcome to stay here. I don't know who was more surprised, me or the RCMP officer. I was at a gas station once when I first came to town here, the 7-Eleven across the police station, and a couple middle class walked up to the policeman and said, you should arrest that man, pointing at me. The officer looks at me, looks at them, and goes, what's for? What's he done? And they didn't have an answer. People told me when I first came to town here, the cops were going to beat me up, and they beat people up in general, and they hate you. They're going to beat the living crap out of you and stuff. I was arrested once in this town, and their tactic backfired. The cops did everything to make my experience as pleasant as possible, and the charges anyways were eventually dropped. Funny thing about that, some people who are obviously in crime, but they never said specifically what, and I'm too polite to asked me my feelings about the man who laid the charges. I, without lying, said what I thought, and that was the end of the matter. The charges were dropped. I was reporting to probation, though. They didn't tell me directly my charges were dropped. They didn't tell my lawyer, Mr. Waddington, the charges were dropped. And my parole officer here in Pope, her number was disconnected. So I contacted Chilliwack Probation, which is the next nearest one and much larger. And they go, yeah, your charges are dropped. And what happened to my probation officer? I don't know. Why is her number disconnected? I don't know. I asked around for a bit. Then I thought, this is stupid. Like, if you want to drop the charges, why do I don't care. I was at the Wendy's the other day grabbing my breakfast, and two of the staff, they're both female indos, were talking about HA this and going to the HA meeting, and the drive-thru lady was telling some white girl, she was in the passenger seat, a good-looking haughty white teenager, and her mom was driving, that I was always the number one suspect at Hope. Utter drivel. Various people have made the newspaper here in town for their crimes in my time here in Hope. I wasn't asked anything about their crimes, and there was a murder. No one asked me about it. That murder happened on the same block as the Boston Pizza, which didn't surprise me. The staff there are pro-crime, and so are the customers. The actual manager was talking crime this, crime that, yeah. So I never went back. And the various arsons in town, no one ever asked me by law enforcement anything about it. I've mentioned this a number of times. This town only has 6,500 people. There's lots of unexplained fires and arsons that have happened here, and these are documented by media reports and such. I don't know what the clearance rates are for fires in other towns of 6,500 in Canada, but it seems unusually high. And I reached out to some people I ran into in Surrey who were firefighters. I just gave them my speech and didn't wait around for an answer, so who knows. I have never in my life of 60 years had any problems with firefighters. As a young child, I'd walk by the main fire hall there in Richmond on Westminster Highway, and they'd say, hey, come in here, you want to see the fire trucks type thing. 4 different firefighters here have tried to pick fights with me. And the last, it's just ridiculous. And some guy was out here by, in that direction. There's a very nice house there. It's got a sign out front of it that's been empty for some time. Very nice house, multiple buildings on the property. And the guy was taking pictures of it, which I thought was odd. His vehicle clearly showed the IAFE sticker for firefighters on it. He began insulting me, and I said, oh yeah, why don't you say it again, you stupid arsonist? And the guy shut up. What made this more interesting was the guy was like a middle-aged man, a white man, but all the people with him were 23 years old or younger. This town's got a lot of weird secrets. I saw a global news vehicle turning onto the highway, coming off Hope Princeton Road, and some guy was giving it the middle finger. Never saw that in the big city, well, except the Stanley Cup riots, but this is the only town I've ever seen child prostitutes. They were operating out of the Coquihalla Motel, which is right next to the police station. And this is the only place, and I've lived in Skid Row, Vancouver, and Wally, where people leave bags of excrement. They throw it in ditches or by the benches, which is really just strange. And I once found a huge bag of diapers, like a very large clear plastic bag of diapers that someone had dumped outside of a fenced area. It's the only time I ever had a problem with a town worker. He saw me looking at it and we started yelling profanities and stuff at me. I didn't engage him or the other man who kept himself silent, but like, why would someone take a huge thing of diapers and dump it in a public spot? Why not throw it in your household garbage or one of the garbage dumpsters that's in town? Some of the people here in town, businesses, for whatever reason, don't lock their dumpsters. And the town dump only charges you $10 for 80-pound bag of crap, which is a great deal. I went there once, got good service from the 2 town employees there. Oh, another vehicle is coming down the highway. For whatever reason, he's flashing all of his lights all of a sudden to give me a show. One of the people who said the mayor's not scared is Paul, who owns Sharon's Deli. When I first came to town, he was telling some guy with him, indicating me he's not going to cause us much of a problem. I kind of liked going there at first. The food was good, but 3 times in a row, one of the employees was yelling out at the top of her lungs, "Don't rat out HA." So I thought, I don't need this crap, so I never went back. Anyways, I'm at SKT, going to SKT Market. Paul's walking down the street last week with two other men. They're all wearing identical black windbreakers. And he says quite loudly, so they could hear it even SKT Market, the mayor is not scared. Well, I said some things back. Well, what's the mayor not scared of? A lawsuit? Being shot dead? A gang war coming in town taking on the HAs? I don't know. What things can a mayor be scared of? Going to federal prison? Some people have told me, longtime residents of this town, that the mayor falls for HA propaganda. I'm sure the mayor in his defense would go, well, no, I talked to businessmen who happen to be HA people. I did see him having a talk with Claire McDonald at the library. I was there at the computer with my headphones on, so I don't know what they were saying. He looks over at me, one eye blinks. He wasn't there when she was doing her Heil Hitler stuff and the children were going back, Heil Hitler. He wasn't there when the guy OD'd in the washroom. It's the only library I've ever been into in my life. I own 4 library cards where someone OD'd in a washroom. He wasn't there when the HAs were having their vote inside the library. He wasn't there when Sarah gave her speech to the librarian, saying she hoped people didn't think the library was racist. She either quit or got fired, but that was it for her. And he wasn't there when Mike the homeless guy twice bundled up his fist and threatened me. I tried to talk to the mayor twice in public about my concerns about Claire McDonald. He refused to engage me at all. I sent him various emails. He's on the library board. He and the library board refused to answer them. When I first came to town, I've mentioned this before, he called me a lowlife from the Blue Moose Cafe, and he had an armed officer of the law, the tall white man, do such a thing. I've also seen that same law enforcement officer at the fire hall dressed like a fireman, and it's like he stepped out deliberately so I would see him as he walked by. And he came into the Yarrow Public Library, which is in Chilliwack, which ain't his jurisdiction. That's the jurisdiction of Chilliwack RCMP. And he said something briefly there. No, I'm not going to repeat it. No big deal. It's not. I just thought it was really odd. Well, if you want to talk to me, you know where I live. You've seen me on the street walking or sitting down. You've even pulled me over, and you were nice enough not to give me a ticket because I was totally out of line. You also insulted me once in front of 2 men that said they were your sons, which is, in my opinion, bad parenting and totally against the RCMP rules. I am not a saint. I've got a lot to work on in my life, but there's worse people than me in this town. They rape, they sell drugs, they steal things, and some of them make the media for their crimes. I wonder if the RCMP Ottawa are running officers here undercover. They sometimes do sneaky stuff like that, and they're good at it. When they had those riots in New Brunswick involving fishermen, they burned the native fishery buildings down. People were saying, where were the RCMP? Where are the RCMP? They were there undercover. They show up with some story, oh yeah, I'm in town, but my car broke down. It's gonna take them 2 weeks. They sit in the bar, have a few beers. They wait till some guys say a few loud things. We should teach those Indians a lesson. Yeah, we're gonna beat them up, blah, blah, blah. And all they do is chime in, yeah. If you guys do that, I'll join you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, some Indians beat my brother up once back in the town I live in, 301. You can't trust them. And so a bunch of people went to jail because they caught him for conspiracy, because they plotted in advance. Other people just got caught up in the moment, and they could claim, yeah, I just got caught up in the moment and joined in. But not them, they couldn't. In our country's fine historic history, in the 1970s, the RCMP burned down a barn where the Quebec Wall was going to have a meeting. Fast forward 3 years, and the Quebec Wall was the legitimate elected government of Quebec. You're supposed to get a bench warrant, and then you wire it for sound, or you just get a paid police agent or an undercover officer to sit in the meeting and check things out. It is a fact in the FLQ crisis, Quebec separatists kidnapped and killed a British diplomat, and were blowing up mailboxes. Pierre Trudeau brought in the War Measures Act. They arrested hundreds of people. Not one of them was ever put on trial, and it all ended. The people who did the actual bombings and killings and kidnappings all fled the country to Cuba. They all eventually, slowly over time, came back, pled guilty, did their time, and now live middle-class lives without causing problems. Communism did not work for them. It was a total failure. I can't believe I have been talking for 15 minutes. If Canada's province of Quebec can have 3 different referendums on sovereignty, association, independence, or whatever, then Punjab and India can have an independence vote. Tibet can have an independence vote. Hong Kong can have an independence vote. It's called democracy and the right to self-determination. I know someone's going out there, but Greg, doesn't that mean Gaza should have self-determination? Well, in that case, the Bible says no. Canada's not mentioned in the Bible. India and the Punjab and Khalistan is not mentioned in the Bible. Neither is China, Tibet, or Hong Kong. I didn't write the thing. I just try to follow